lie, guys. I feel like we're on a crash course headed to hell. Donald Trump today said what everybody already knew, which is why we're going to war in Venezuela. And it has nothing to do with drugs or narco trafficking, but it has everything to do with their oil. Donald Trump said this today regarding Venezuela and their oil, and the fact that the United States actually has rights to Venezuela's oil and the land, and the fact that our companies were pulled out of Venezuela. Take a listen to this.
We want it back. They took our oil rights. We had a lot of oil there. As you know, they threw our companies out, and we want it back. We want it back. They took our oil rights. We had a lot of oil there.
I mean,
As you know,
he's just saying it out loud directly. What we all know, it's really nothing surprising, but just hearing him flat out say it, this is on top of the fact that Tucker Carlson also earlier today said that members of Congress were briefed yesterday that Donald Trump is going to be announcing in a few hours now, later this evening, that the United States is going to be going to war with Venezuela. That was pretty shocking stuff. Take a listen to this.
Is Trump going to start a war in Venezuela?
I don't know. I don't know when this program airs, the one that we're on right now. This thing's maybe live.
We're live now, and then
okay.
It'll be posted immediately. So now,
my sense is, I don't know the answer. I've certainly been on the phone a lot about it. I have no power. I'm a podcaster, but I'm very interested. And so here's what I know so far, which is that members of Congress were briefed yesterday that a war is coming, and it'll be announced in the address to the nation tonight at 9:00 by the president. Who knows, by the way, if that will actually happen? I don't know. And I never want to overstate what I know, which is pretty limited in general. But
so, Tucker Carlson said it himself. He doesn't know for sure, but he was briefed. I feel like if somebody's telling him that information, that's not something that that you would just kind of make up on the fly, or that would be a lie. So it's pretty shocking to hear. Venezuela, after Trump made that statement regarding Venezuela's oil, Venezuelan government officials went out publicly and stated that they already knew it had to do with the oil. And it's just interesting to hear them say things from their point of view. So also take a listen to this clip here.
El día de ayer, lamentablemente, escuchamos unas delirantes declaraciones del presidente de los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica. Delirantes. Cuando señaló e indicó que se establecía un supuesto bloqueo naval en las aguas del Caribe con un despliegue, como él mismo lo ha dicho, sin precedentes de su armada, de la Armada de los Estados Unidos, en espacios del Caribe, un espacio que está dado para...
So there you have it. I feel like I don't know how you can go back at this point. I don't know how you can revert course, because what is important to understand is that there's a lot of political power. There's a lot of power behind wanting this war. There's the entire military industrial complex that wants this war. There's the fact that they'll say that another reason, which is a valid reason, they'll go ahead and say, oh, well, we don't want somebody that's aligned with Russia and China at our border. And then, of course, there's Israeli interests. And you know that whenever Israel wants something, it also really helps a lot to influence that decision making. And the Israeli interest is, well, we want to plop in place a Israeli puppet. For those who don't know, and I'll have to make a whole separate video on this, Israel now is very heavily prioritized on conquering the global South, and specifically Latin America right now. It wants to make sure it turns all of Latin America heavily pro-Israel. Because of the fact that Israel is losing so much global support. And they already know that they can have Maria Corina Machado put in place, which is the Western puppet that recently received the Nobel Peace Prize, that Trump and Donald Trump Jr. and the Trump family really want to plop in place once Maduro's out. That's all in the works. This is all in the works. And then, of course, the United States now will be able to open up our oil refineries in the Gulf, along the in the United States, that were previously processing Venezuela's crude oil. Venezuela has the largest oil reserves, but they're also very impure oil. and it's very heavy oil that needs to be heavily refined and processed. The United States opened up refineries in Florida and all along the coast, specifically meant to process Venezuela's oil. Well, after we sanctioned them, we shut down those refineries, or they were heavily reduced in capacity, specifically because of the fact that we were using them for Venezuela's oil. And now we have these sanctions in place, and we're not doing trade with Venezuela's oil, so those refineries are no longer processing oil. So there's a whole entire military industrial complex behind pushing it. And what I find so you know what the thing is? Why don't they just have the balls to say, Trump said we're doing it for the oil, then stop this whole push about this drug trafficking thing. We know it's not coming from Venezuela. I'm so sick of it. Like, I want them to do a poll. I would really love to see a poll, and I would like to see how many Americans actually buy the excuse, buy the propaganda, because I personally believe it's less than 20%. I don't know, maybe for specific generations it might be a bit larger, but I feel like we've reached a point that people know what's propaganda and what's not. So why do we have to do this whole narco trafficking thing? I'm really starting to get irritated with it. And here's the thing. They think it's going to be an easy regime change operation. That's always what they think. They think they're going to toss Maria Corina Machado in and everything's going to be fine and dandy. And maybe that is the case, and maybe everything will go according to plan. And maybe it's not the case. And maybe it's going to end up being Iraq 2.0, where it's going to be every single regime change operation that the United States has previously done that's went awry. And do we really need to take that risk right now? Why don't we let them figure it out themselves? Here's another really interesting, really just it's kind of the cherry on top of a tweet that I saw earlier. And the tweet was coming from, let me see if I can go ahead and share my screen here again. The tweet was coming from Tulsi Gabbard back in 2019. And this is what Tulsi Gabbard had to say. She stated, here it is: the United States needs to stay out of Venezuela. Let the Venezuelan people determine their future. We don't want other countries to choose our leaders, so we have to stop trying to choose theirs. This was back in January 24th of 2019. Pretty crazy stuff how we went from that to where we're at now. I think, I don't know, guys. I feel like once you're in office, something happens. All of a sudden, some people come up to you and they tell you how things are really run. And all of a sudden, you drop all of your morals. They go straight out the door. And this is also what I don't understand. And I feel like the West is just shooting itself in the foot, because it's not just the United States, as we know, that's doing this. It's also the United Kingdom. It's also France. It's really the Western powers as well. Is that we did the same thing in Libya. I'm actually going to be making another video on how the downfall of Gaddafi contributed to what's happening in Europe now. And NATO forces helped in the overthrow of Gaddafi. And a lot of the reason they did it was, again, a very similar situation where there were Zionist interests and wanting Gaddafi overthrown because he supported Palestine. And then there was also the fact that had to do with his oil and all of the oil reserves that Libya sat on. So what happened? We ended up overthrowing Gaddafi, and it worked out. And then the largest migrant crisis that Europe's ever experienced ensued, because Gaddafi was the leader that was putting a curb on migrants entering from Africa to Europe. And migrant crisis ensued. Libya, once one of the most powerful countries in Africa, highest GDP per capita, sovereign wealth fund, free education, free healthcare, is now undergoing modern day slavery. And did it benefit Europe at all? Did they get reduced price on oil? Maybe. What about the fact that now Europe has all of this internal issues because of the fact that so many migrants were put into Europe from Africa after we destabilized, or after Europe destabilized and the United States destabilized their country? Now look at Venezuela. The same exact thing happened, by the way, in Venezuela. The same exact thing. Back in Trump's first term, he sanctioned Venezuela, heavily sanctioned it. And it led to a refugee crisis because it caused Venezuela to have economic collapse. Trump wanted that. He was hoping that Maduro's regime would go under just by creating an economic crisis, and there would be civil unrest and civil war, and he would get plopped out of place. It didn't happen. He was somehow able to hold on to power. But what did happen is 8 million Venezuelans leaving Venezuela as refugees because things got so bad, everything became so expensive. So it led to a massive migrant crisis. Now, the United States didn't feel that. in Trump's first term because he was tough on the borders. But then Biden comes in office, and all of the refugees that Trump created then made their way into the United States and into Denver, Colorado, especially. Huge population there and everything going on in Aurora, Colorado. Trump caused that by his economic sanctions that caused them to flee. He campaigned then on his second term getting them out, although his actions in his first term are what caused the crisis, and then Biden's weak borders are what allowed them to come in. So you see how really both sides just kind of work together to do the same thing. I really don't think it matters, because Biden eased the sanctions a little bit on Venezuela during his administration. They were still there, though. They were still in place. What ends up happening is the countries that do these sort of things end up taking in the refugees anyway, and it causes civil unrest in the countries when you're dealing with a massive wave of migrants, and the leaders don't care because at least they got their oil. It doesn't benefit the country long term. I really think the world would be a better place if every country was powerful, had some sort of power, had some sort of wealth. Okay, maybe that's the better word. Maybe not every country being powerful, but every country having a level of wealth to where their people are taken care of. Imagine if we lived in a world where every country had enough wealth to sustain their people, to where they were taken care of, to where they didn't need to be refugees, to where they at least has stability. Isn't that the goal? Because it benefits Europe, it benefits America. There wouldn't be refugees if they didn't need to flee. But then we go about doing these regime change operations and destabilizing their countries. And then when they flee, people look at the cause, which is the fact that they're in these new countries now, and they look at the effect, which is the fact that they're in these countries, but not the cause, which was government officials. So that looks like exactly what's happening now with Venezuela. We'll see. It's 6 p.m. in a couple hours. Donald Trump should be saying his press conference later. I'll be making a video on it, and we'll see. Is Donald Trump going to be declaring war? Is he going to be declaring some sort of operation in Venezuela? What's going on? And it's sure to get major blowback regardless. Also, keep in mind the Epstein file due date is Friday, so just in 2 days. We'll also see what's going to happen with that. I believe AOC earlier today and Thomas Massey might have as well stated that you have to keep in mind whatever is happening now is also under the umbrella of the fact that the Epstein files, or in the ecosystem of the fact that the Epstein files are also being released soon, or also forced to be released soon. So is this something to evade that and to minimize the pressure on that or the media attention on that? Honestly, who's to say? I think it's a whole factor of things just really coming together. So we'll see what happens moving forward. If you want to follow along, make sure to click the subscribe button below. It helps me reach more people like you. Give it a thumbs up as well. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.